The ink on the ownership papers wasn't even dry before my sister handed me a pink slip with a smile. After everything we built together, late nights, early mornings, saving the family dealership from collapse, she fired me like I was some intern with an attitude. But what she didn't know was that I had just become something she never expected, her biggest competition. And I wasn't just walking away quietly. No, I was walking straight into the office of our biggest rival with a plan. I grew up breathing motor oil and weekend sales quotas. My earliest memories aren't of playgrounds or birthday parties. They're of showroom floors, the buzz of fluorescent lights, and the sound of my dad telling a customer, "We'll take care of you like family." That line wasn't just a pitch, it was a promise. One we all lived by. Our family dealership wasn't just a business, it was our legacy. Built from nothing by my grandfather after he came back from the war with nothing but a busted-up Chevy and a dream. And at the heart of it all, me and my sister, Danny. We weren't just sisters, we were partners in crime. Growing up, we'd play sales team, in the back lot with old floor models, pretending we were closing deals with imaginary customers and sealing it with a handshake and a juice box. I was always the talker, the people person. Danny, she was sharp, quiet, calculating, always watching. We were opposites, but we made the perfect team. By the time we hit our 20s, it wasn't just pretend anymore. Our dad started trusting us with real responsibility. I worked the front, sales, customer service, building relationships. Danny handled numbers, paperwork, back-end systems. We had different styles, but it worked. We joked that I was the engine and she was the brakes. She kept us grounded, I kept us moving. When things got tough, like when a national chain opened down the street and we nearly lost everything, it was the two of us who pulled the dealership back from the brink. We rebranded, built a social media presence, started a referral program. I was staying up past midnight calling customers. Danny was in the back room crunching budgets until her eyes blurred. We fought sometimes, sure, sisters do, but underneath it all was trust. Solid, unshakable trust. At least, I thought so. If you'd asked me then who would inherit the dealership one day, I would have said both of us, no question. It didn't even cross my mind that one of us would ever have to choose. That one of us would look the other in the eye and say, "You're no longer needed here." But maybe I should have seen it coming. Maybe the signs were always there, buried beneath quiet smiles, subtle eye rolls, and those moments Danny would brush off my ideas like they were cute little suggestions from a kid playing boss. I thought she was just being meticulous. Now I realize she was watching and waiting. The thing about family is, you don't see the storm coming until it's already in your living room. And by the time I saw it, I was already soaking wet. It didn't happen overnight. That's the thing people get wrong about betrayal. It's not one big moment. It's a series of tiny ones. Little shifts in tone, lingering glances, decisions made without your input. At first, they don't seem worth mentioning. You tell yourself, she's just stressed or it's not a big deal. But then one day, the pattern clicks. You realize you've been watching a slow leak that's about to flood everything. For us, it started when Dad got sick. Nothing sudden, just age catching up with him in that quiet, cruel way it does. He started needing more rest, taking more long weekends, and eventually, he stopped coming in altogether. He didn't want to admit it, but the dealership had passed into our hands long before the paperwork made it official. And while I was still in the rhythm of keeping the business alive, chasing leads, calming down irate customers, training new hires, Danny was already stepping into a different role. She wasn't asking me things anymore. She was telling me. I'd walk into morning meetings to find that decisions had been made without me. New software ordered, schedules rearranged, marketing budgets cut. When I questioned anything, she'd tilt her head and smile like I was adorable for caring. "Don't worry about it, B," she'd say. "I've got it under control." Under control. Like I was the one getting in the way. Then there were the people. Employees who used to come to me for advice stopped making eye contact. I'd catch them in quiet conversations with Danny, exchanging knowing looks I wasn't part of. One day I walked past the break room and heard my name, not in anger, but in that tone. The one that drips with condescension, like I was the family mascot instead of someone who'd helped double our client base in 2 years. I tried brushing it off. Danny was under pressure, I told myself. Maybe she felt like she had to prove herself, now that Dad was stepping back. I gave her space. I took on more work. I told myself, this is temporary. But the temporary became routine. The moment I knew something had shifted permanently came on a Wednesday afternoon. We were in the middle of quarterly reviews, and I asked to go over the financial reports before our next staff meeting. Danny blinked and said, "You don't need to worry about that. I've already prepped the numbers." I laughed, thinking she was kidding. "You prepped them without me?" She didn't laugh back. "I'm the owner now, Bianca," she said, without even looking up from her laptop. "This is how we're doing things moving forward." That sentence hit like a car crash you never saw coming. It wasn't just the words, it was the finality. This is how we're doing things. Like I wasn't part of we anymore. She'd signed the ownership transfer papers just a week before. Dad had told me over dinner, said he was proud of both of us, but Danny had the right temperament to lead. I didn't fight it. I smiled, nodded, even toasted her new title. She's my sister, I thought. Titles don't change blood, but they do. Titles change power, and power, when held the wrong way, can change people. After that, it was like I was a guest in my own life. My name was still on the business cards, but my voice didn't carry anymore. Clients I brought in were redirected to newer sales reps. My schedule got trimmed for efficiency. I was told I was being freed up to focus on brand partnerships, the same partnerships Danny later closed without looping me in. She was moving me out, not with drama, not with a blowout fight, but with precision. Quietly, efficiently, the way you uninstall an old program, with a few silent clicks and a progress bar no one watches. And I let her. That's what haunts me the most. I let her because I didn't want to believe she was capable of it. But just because someone shares your last name doesn't mean they share your heart. And deep down, I think she'd been waiting for the moment to erase me, the moment she didn't need me anymore. She thought I'd just disappear. She had no idea what I'd already set in motion. It happened on a Thursday. Not that the day of the week matters, but I remember because it was raining. A slow, cold drizzle that made everything feel heavier than it already was. I was wearing a navy blazer I hadn't pulled out in months, one of those last-minute, hopeful decisions like maybe dressing up would make things feel normal again. I even brought coffee for the team. Everyone acted surprised, like I was crashing a party they didn't know I was still invited to. I should have known. Danny asked me to meet her in Dad's old office, which she now referred to as her office, though the nameplate on the door still said Paul Leone. I paused before walking in. Not out of fear, but habit. It used to be the place where we celebrated wins, planned holiday parties, laughed over inside jokes about customers who thought they could negotiate with an empty wallet and a smile. But that room was cold now. The blinds always drawn. The couch we picked out together for Dad years ago had been replaced with a sterile leather one that looked like it belonged in a lawyer's office. No warmth, no history, just Danny, sitting behind the desk like she'd been waiting for this moment her whole life. She didn't ask me to sit, just looked at me like she was reading a script she'd rehearsed in front of the mirror. "Thanks for coming in early," she said, like I didn't unlock the building half the week. "This won't take long." I stood there, coffee still in hand, trying to piece together what vibe she was going for. Cold professionalism, sisterly concern, a weird combination of both. Then she reached for the folder. A folder. She had printed it out. Not even the courtesy of a conversation. Just paperwork. Crisp, stapled, final. "I've decided to make some leadership adjustments," she said. "Moving forward, your position will be dissolved." I blinked. Dissolved. She gave this little shrug, like it was out of her hands. "It's nothing personal. The structure's just evolved, and frankly, I think your strengths are better suited elsewhere. Outside the dealership. Outside. Elsewhere. Dissolved." I felt my heartbeat slow, not in panic, but in focus. That sharp, almost mathematical calm that hits when something shatters so hard, you stop trying to hold it together. I looked down at the folder. The top page had my name on it. Severance details. A politely worded summary of how I had transitioned out of the company. The paper was still warm. She'd printed it minutes before I arrived. "So that's it," I said, setting the coffee on her desk. "After everything?" Danny exhaled, a breath she'd clearly been holding. "This is business, Bianca. We've outgrown the old system. It's time to evolve." I almost laughed. Like I was still part of we. You could have told me, I said. You could have sat down with me. You could have. I didn't know you that, she cut in, voice firmer now. I've carried this place for the last year while you played brand ambassador on Instagram. That one landed. Not because it was true. It wasn't, but because she said it like it had been building up for a long time. Like that line had been burning a hole in her throat, waiting for the moment she could use it like a match. I nodded slowly, not because I agreed, but because I understood. She hadn't fired me today. Not really. She'd been erasing me for months. One system login at a time. One closed door at a time. She was just finishing the job. But what she didn't know, what made me bite the inside of my cheek to keep from smiling, was that while she'd been plotting my exit, I'd already been writing the next chapter. So I stood up, slid the folder back across the desk, and said, "You're right. It is time to evolve." She looked relieved, maybe even a little smug, like I just handed her the keys to a car she thought I couldn't afford. But as I walked out of that office, past the receptionist who suddenly wouldn't meet my eyes, past the showroom I helped redesign, past the picture of me, Danny, and Dad at the dealership's 25th anniversary party, I didn't feel broken. I felt dangerous, because while she'd been so busy watching her throne, she hadn't noticed I was building my own. And the ink on that contract was still drying. What Danny didn't know, what she never even thought to ask, was that the moment she started cutting me out, I started planting roots somewhere else. It started innocently, just a lunch. 3 months earlier, I ran into Malcolm Reeves at a Chamber of Commerce networking event. You'd know his name if you're in the business. Malcolm runs Reeves Auto Group, 3 locations, including the sleek glass and steel one 5 miles from ours. Our so-called biggest competition. The kind of place our dad used to spit on under his breath. Too flashy, too corporate, too slick. We were the local legacy. They were the invaders. That was the family mythology. But Malcolm wasn't the monster I'd been told he was. He was smart, yes, cutthroat, definitely, but he wasn't stupid. He'd been watching. He knew I was the face of our dealership, even if Danny was tightening her grip behind the scenes. And he'd heard about the changes, the whispers. When your rival's blood starts to stain the water, sharks take notice. He asked if I'd ever thought about doing something different. Something bigger. I laughed at the time, told him I was loyal to the bone. But I saved his card, because somewhere deep down I think I knew. By the time Danny cut my hours and stripped me of client accounts, I'd already had 3 more chance meetings with Malcolm. Not interviews, just quiet conversations over overpriced lattes where we talked about everything but a job. Market shifts, inventory pipelines, EV adoption rates, hiring culture. He was courting me without saying it out loud, and I was showing up without admitting why. The real turning point came the day I found out Danny had frozen my access to the dealership CRM. No warning, just a cold message from IT, per ownership directive. That's when something snapped. Not out of anger, but clarity. I called Malcolm that afternoon. The offer came fast. Not because he was desperate, but because he knew I wasn't just a good hire, I was a statement. Bringing me in wasn't just gaining a top performer. It was throwing a spotlight on the cracks in Danny's empire. It was a headline waiting to happen. I didn't sign right away. I needed leverage. Not over Danny, over myself. I needed to know that walking away wouldn't just be an escape. It would be a launch. So I negotiated terms most people would be too scared to ask for. Malcolm didn't flinch. Full authority over brand and community partnerships. A budget I could shape from scratch. Freedom to build a team, my team. And a title, VP of Strategic Development. I accepted the position the day before Danny fired me. The timing wasn't a coincidence. See, while she was printing out that severance folder, I was signing an NDA, getting briefed by HR, and picking out the color scheme for my new office. While she was handing me a fake smile and a box for my things, I was already scheduled to lead a strategy meeting Monday morning, at a desk 5 inches longer than hers, in a dealership that outsold us every quarter for the past 3 years. But the best part, my first project was a full market crossover campaign targeting mid-tier buyers aged 28 to 42. You know, the exact demographic I built at our old dealership. The clients who still had my number saved in their phones. The ones who trusted me, not a corporate email. The ones who came in because of me, and who'd follow me if I gave them a reason. And oh, I had won. Danny didn't fire me out of strategy. She did it out of fear. Because deep down, she knew I was the bridge between the dealership's history and its future, and she couldn't control a bridge she didn't build. But bridges can become launch pads, and I wasn't done rising. So I walked out of her office that rainy Thursday with nothing in my hands, no box, no folder, just a smile. Because the moment she fired me, she freed me. And she had no idea I'd just become the one person who could take everything she thought was hers and build something better, right next door. I didn't start with revenge. That's the part people never believe, but it's true. When I walked into Reeves Auto Group on my first day as VP of Strategic Development, I wasn't thinking about Danny. I was thinking about my team, my future, the version of me I'd been forced to suppress for so long, the one who had ideas bigger than monthly promotions and Father's Day oil change discounts. I was thinking about what I could finally build without asking for permission. But ignoring Danny, that didn't last long. Because in the car business, especially in a town like ours, word spreads fast. And Danny didn't take my exit quietly. She spun it like she always did. Controlling the story, Bianca decided to step back. Bianca wanted something different. Bianca couldn't keep up with the company's direction. Cute. But what she didn't realize was that in trying to erase me, she gave me the one thing she never understood: narrative power. I wasn't just a former co-owner anymore. I was the underdog, the comeback story, the girl next door who got booted by her own sister and landed on her feet, and then some. So I leaned in. My first move was visibility. I didn't just take the job, I owned it. Weekly videos, customer spotlights, a blog series called Behind the Wheel where I told stories of real buyers, real families, the same people who used to shop with us and were now just one click away from following me to Reeves. I didn't trash my sister. I didn't have to. I just told the truth. I showed people who I was, who I still am, and they came. First in trickles. A familiar face here, a curious phone call there. Hey, Bianca, saw your name on the newsletter. You still working with trucks? Bianca, you got a minute to look at a lease for my son? Bianca, we don't really like how things feel over there anymore. That was the crack. I just had to widen it. Next, I built the loyalty program. Not just points and punch cards, something deeper. Birthday calls, service discounts tied to referrals, community partnerships with local coffee shops and gyms. I made sure every single thing had my signature on it, figuratively and literally. People don't buy cars from brands. They buy them from people they trust. I had always been that person. Danny never understood that. She thought leadership was control. I knew it was connection. Then came the masterstroke, the hiring. Remember those employees who stopped meeting my eyes? The ones who kept their heads down while Danny froze me out? Turns out they weren't loyal to her, they were scared. And once I was back in power, in a position to offer them something better, they came knocking. Quietly, humbly, like people crossing enemy lines in the dark. I didn't even have to poach them. I just answered the door. One by one, I rebuilt my team. Not just sales reps, but the service techs, the finance wizard who used to joke that she could sell a loan to a ghost. The receptionist who remembered every customer's dog's name. The DNA of our original dealership, it was never the building. It was us, and I was bringing them back together. Malcolm gave me full freedom to build something bold, and I didn't waste it. We launched a women's auto education series, free monthly classes on basic car maintenance and smart buying. Our competitor, still handing out free air fresheners like it's 2006. We hosted food truck Fridays, collaborated with local high schools for internship programs, and set up a scholarship fund in my grandfather's name. Every move was a message. To the community, I'm still here. To the industry, watch me. To Danny, you might own the dealership, but I own the story now. And it worked. Within 6 months, our location outsold hers by 17%. We didn't even run seasonal blowouts. We didn't need to. People weren't just shopping with us. They were coming back to us. Customers who had left felt like they were finally seen again. Like they were more than a number on a sales goal spreadsheet. And they were right. Because I'd learned the hard way that when someone tries to silence you, you don't fight them with noise. You fight them with presence. Every billboard, every customer review, every welcome back, Bianca, I heard walking through the showroom, that was my strategy. Not war. Winning. Because this was never about revenge. It was about return. And I hadn't just returned. I'd arrived. It happened just after sunset. I'd stayed late, going over Q3 projections with my new marketing lead. One of the best hires I've ever made, by the way, when I glanced out the floor-to-ceiling windows of my new office and saw the reflection of something strangely familiar. A pearl white SUV. Same make, same model, same monogrammed keychain I'd helped her pick out 2 birthdays ago. Danny. She didn't come in. Of course she didn't. She parked across the street, in the same spot our dad used to take lunch breaks back when Reeves was just that place with the glass showroom. She didn't get out. Just sat there, engine running, staring through the window like she was trying to see something clearly from a distance. I didn't wave, didn't flinch, just watched her watch me. For the first time in months, I saw the truth not as a wound but as a win. She hadn't just lost a sister. She'd lost the pulse of her business, the thing she'd never been able to duplicate in spreadsheets or leadership charts. Me. And now, she was realizing it. I turned back to my laptop, heart steady, fingers gliding over the keyboard like I already knew how this would play out. Because here's the thing Danny never understood: legacy isn't inherited. It's earned. You don't keep customers, loyalty, or people just because your name is on a sign. You keep them because they believe in you. And no signature on a deed can fake that. The next morning, a familiar client walked through our front doors, one of Danny's top accounts, someone I'd personally helped lease their first SUV back when they couldn't even qualify for a bank loan. They didn't say much, just looked around, smiled, and said, "Feels like home here." I just nodded. That's the goal. What I didn't say was this: that client was the first of 10 on my list. All of them high value. All of them loyal to me, not the logo. All of them ready to move, not because of spite, but because of service. And I'd only just begun. Because while Danny was watching me from a parking lot like a ghost of something she used to control, I was already negotiating our next expansion location, in the same zip code where she's planning hers. She has no idea what's coming, but she will, soon.